Happy Friday. We're going to keep it light and breezy today and discuss some things that we haven't normally discussed. We get a lot of questions, guys, of, hey, you guys should do this from this movie. You should do this from this movie. I get kind of inundated with some of these, and I wanted to give us the opportunity to kind of discuss what licenses we look at and why we look at them, and just kind of a little bit into our realm of licensing.
Yeah, I get a lot of that too on the forums. I'm sure you do too, Tyler.
It's a lot on the forums, and it's especially at shows. I find that it gets at the most at shows when people come by your booth and they go, they kind of pull you aside and go, "You should make X, like you should make this," you know,
right?
And yeah,
and we like that. We like to hear from everybody. It's sometimes just not that easy to Of course, we get a lot of feedback at shows, and we like to implement that. What should we do? What are we missing? Hey, we didn't think about that. I mean, a lot of good ideas come up, but on the forums, I'll get a lot of messages and that sort of thing where people, take like WB or something like that, for an example. They see you doing Batman. So they're like, you should do this from, and then they'll name another side WB property, or like with Universal or something like that. Hey, you guys are doing Jurassic Park. You should do this, as though we can just plug that module into what we're doing. And it's never that easy. So what happens, I'm trying to think of the way just not to bore everybody to death. When you're a company like us and you go out there to get a license with a given studio, let's use just use Universal for an example. Normally what you'll do, you'll go in with your wish list. Like, hey, we really like Jurassic Park, and we really like Battlestar Galactica, or we really like, and you just go down, nothing in particular, your list of preferred properties. And then you kind of try to negotiate a package within that scope of what you want to do. Now, if you don't get a given thing in there, with whatever package you're trying to put together, it doesn't mean you can't go in and ask for it later. It just means it is a lot more difficult, though. So normally you're married to what's called a line plan, and Tyler, you're going to take that from there.
Yeah, so you sort of propose your line plan, which is a general outline of what you want to make from which film, or like some people call them films. I guess the industry term would be properties. So whatever properties you want, and you take it and you make your list. And like Ryland said, you can add, you can deviate from that list, but it's not just like it's not just, oh, we want to do this so we can do it, or we're going to do it. Like everything has to go through approvals. There's processes for everything. There also has to be, it also has to make sense. A lot of times, a lot of people come up, and because of just what we're in, like we get a lot of sci-fi fans, a lot of horror fans, and there's big budget horror and there's niche horror in sci-fi. And so many people are fans of niche horror that people come up and they'll be like, you should make like this thing, and it'll something from just a movie that 99% of the people haven't heard of, but it's usually something that like we like, because like, again, like we're in that world. But as a company, you always have to realize like it's not just about us, like us as in like the five of us. It has to make sense to appeal to a wider audience as well. So
right.
It's like two sides to the you should makes. And sometimes people come in and say like, you should make something like with mass appeal, like you should make lightsabers. And you have to say like, well, yeah, but that's a different company, and you literally have to apply to these companies. It's not just like, hey, this is me, let us make stuff. It's a long and time consuming and expensive process.
So guys, it's not as simple as I'm waving money around and just take my money.
No.
And like on the rarest, silliest occasion, like something can almost work that way, but it's not going to be that way with like the big studios. There's some studios that are smaller. There's some people who rep smaller studios, and because of that, you could actually kind of get through the bureaucratic stages of it much faster. But with something like a lightsaber or a batarang or a Jurassic Park cryocan, that's not just knocking on the studio's door and saying like, hey, look at the stuff we've done and let us do that for you too.
Right. They want to see a line plan. They want to know how many you're going to make, where you're going to distribute it, how you're going to distribute it. What are your manufacturing capabilities? Are you, we can do a whole episode on being compliant with
Mhm.
sometimes. Well,
My favorite.
that one another time. Some studios, want you to be, factory compliant, FAMA compliant, and that means a lot of different things. A big word salad, and like I said, we'll talk about that one later. But uh, there's so many personalities involved, and we've talked about that in a couple other videos. It's not enough to have a solid line plan and to be able to carry, whatever you've proposed across the finish line. You got to be able to get along with, your representatives and everyone else in between, and then come any number of rules about what you can and when you can and how you talk about things, how you show things off. You start to see those little legal lines on the bottom of all of our photographs. Those are, as you know all
Yeah.
too well, those are all very important. So, yeah, there's a lot to it. But as far as just licensing in general goes, it's never just as easy. But for the rare, exception that Tyler mentioned, where hey, I want to make so and so. Okay, give me some money. Here you go. I think we had that happen on just one or two things, smaller properties. But for the most part, we're auditioning. We're showing what it can be, how it can be, and in many instances, you've got to educate your IP holder, on what it is you want to do. And sometimes they're like, "Why do you want to do that?" And you're like, "Just here, let me write you a check and just go like that. Just tell me it's okay to do it." Again, it's just seldom that easy. But yeah, there's tons of properties out there we want. There's tons of things we're interested in. And as we've said before, if it's solid and it's got a good strong history to it, and chances are, if you love it, we probably love it, and we've probably had a conversation about it. And the fact that we don't have that property that you love right now doesn't mean we're not after it. It can mean somebody else has it. Somebody else is doing something a little, nuanced, something other than we want to do with it, and it's just not a right, the proper fit right now. But we've got some exciting licenses coming up that we're popping. We're just dying to
Mhm.
talk about. But as with all things licensing, there's a time and a place and a manner in which we're able to present things. So that will be soon, very soon. We'll talk about some stuff. But yeah, we watch everybody on the forums and we get comments. And as you see everything through customer service, Amy, people are never shy about telling us what we should be making, and we like that. It's just not always that easy, and especially like we said, when it's from the same property, like you should do this. Like also when you put a line plan together, when you guys like us, licenses are sold by category. So like if somebody wants to do Jurassic Park toasters or oven mitts, that's a whole nother, that's home goods. It's a whole separate category than what we operate in. We could no more make that than they could a cryo can. And then there's territories where you can and can't sell. And we've talked about that a little bit. When you buy a license from a studio, they tell you where you can and can't operate. In our case, like with Universal and Jurassic Park, it would be the U.S. and Japan. And then we see the comments online where, oh, you guys won't ship to Europe and you won't do actually. Again, it's not that we don't want to. We would love to. It's just we're prohibited. We have to operate within our given territory. So, any other questions about licensing, Amy? I mean, kind of, you can go in a lot of different directions with this, but I think the main thing to punctuate is just because we're in a given space doesn't mean we can have everything in that space. And just because we do prop replicas and we license with studios doesn't mean we're going to license with all studios. Although, and then sometimes there's stuff we want really, really bad that just doesn't happen. You guys remember we were working pretty hard to jump in on, I guess it doesn't hurt to talk about it. I mean, we like everybody at the studio and everybody who was involved with the process. But for a minute, we were talking about doing some stuff with John Wick and the last film in particular. And we were, the goal was we were trying to get everything done before the premiere. And we had some designs on, a number of props from it that, we were just dying to get out. And we just couldn't make the deal happen. It just wasn't right for us. So that's an example of one that we eyeballed and we really wanted something to do with it. But in the end, the package that was presented and what we felt was a good fit, they were just two different things. And that's happened time and time again with multiple properties. I mean, we've, won't mention them all, but yeah, you guys know what I'm thinking about. There's been a few that we've toyed with that just for whatever
Well,
reason.
there's been some too that it's like at the time no, then we've come back and it's yes, so
Right.
it's as much in their hands as it is ours.
Yeah, and
They want new
sometimes it's
partners.
just
Yeah,
sometimes
at
the
that
ship
time.
is sold, or the
Yeah.
ship is sailed rather. I just remember when we were negotiating John Wick, we were looking at all the cool stuff that had come out before us, and everything that was getting ready to come out in the new film. And I forget who it was that went on eBay and just literally everything we were getting ready to write a huge check for was being sold for pennies out of Asia. And
Oh yeah, on
yeah,
Etsy, eBay. Mhm.
yeah, and we have to take stuff like that in consideration too. If the market's already being satiated, or it's just going to be too much of a struggle to punctuate why ours is cooler than this, or why this one's, hey, this is licensed and this and that. Sometimes it's just too much work and it's just not a good fit. So, but yeah, we're always in a constant state of looking for new licenses, talking about licensing. And then I guess the other thing some people don't know is licenses are they've got short fuses on them. They're 24 to 36 months usually. And when you're a company like us you could spend 8-9 months in production alone on an item. You can see how you can run out of time really, really fast. So it's funny when I look at things like Blade Runner. We've done a lot of really cool stuff for Blade Runner in a short amount of time. Blade Runner 2049, and there's so much more to do. And I every time we post a water gun or the Hero Blaster or something like that, there'll always be the comment, any updates on Kay's gun, any updates on Love's gun, stuff like that. And people forget, this is a 3-year license. It's a long run. We're not going to let everything out in the first year. Every once in a while we got to give people a beat to recover from that wallet hit from the last item we sold. Sometimes it's whatever factor we're using needs a minute themselves. They've got a laundry list of projects in front of them, and so it just makes sense to space some things out. So we always say if we brought it up, chances are you're going to see it down the road, and we'll update when there's something worth saying. We just don't want to do videos, and we don't want to be online every 2 or 3 minutes going, it's coming. We're working on it. It's when there's something to say, we'll throw it out there. We're not holding out. But that's also one of the reasons we don't do reserves way in advance. Where some companies they'll announce a project and right then the reserve list goes up. And for a year and a half or whatever, you're in limbo waiting on that project to come out. And if you've taken money, you owe an explanation of what stage that project's in, where, and rightfully so. We don't want to put ourselves in that position. We never want to be the company that's moving the goalpost back. Like, hey, you said this was going to be ready in June. It's August, and I paid for it a year ago. I don't want to be the guy who has to explain that, what mold had to be redone or what had to be re-engineered or repurposed, or like we were talking about in another video, like originally having sourced the Lost Boys bottle, only to find out that we were going to have to make them, custom manufacture them. That would have been a
Yeah, I mean
huge,
that added months. That added months, and
right.
that was just. And occasionally someone would ask about it, and on the rare occasion we had to answer, we would just say, after a
Sorry.
delay,
Yeah.
But if someone had paid their, 50% deposit down payment, then yeah, people get mad. It's like, well,
Right.
I already
And
bought this. Where is it? And because so many people have done vaporware, like everyone, I think, is a little itchy when it comes to putting down deposits, because it's like, is will I ever get it? And we didn't want that. We didn't want that for the people who buy from us. We just didn't want the liability as a company.
yeah. And at this stage, we're into I forget when we took our first sell, but I know it was in the last 36 months. So we're still in
it was actually April of 2022. So we are at 2 years right now.
see, so it and Tyler and I spent about a year getting, just warming up, getting everything in place with factories and so on. And then you came on, Amy, when we had one or two. We had a couple projects, two or three.
You
Land.
guys had you guys had landed the smoke capsules, the cursed monkey paw. No, excuse me, the ashtrays, not the capsules.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
The
ashtrays.
the monkey paws, and the Goonies sets. And then I started like 2 weeks before the Ruby Slippers got here because I came into Myrtle to help with at least one of the trucks. I can't remember if I was there for both.
Yeah. I guess where I was headed with that was we spent so much time getting everything together, at the height of the pandemic, and then just dropping the sales gate 24 months ago. The point being, we're still new. People are still trying to figure out who we are. How often do we see, I know I see older established clients, guys I knew 10, 15 years ago, who are like, I didn't even know what this was. I didn't even know what Paragon was till I tripped. Somebody sent me a link to such and such. Is this you? Is that you, Rilo? Is that you, Rye? Yeah, it's good. And so people are still finding their way to us. But our main goal always up front, we just didn't want to be that company who, just Babe Ruth that pointed for the bleachers. Hey, here comes the home run. Send us your money now, and then a year later, you're, hey, where's my stuff? You guys, no reason for us to do that. So we were more than happy to take our time and earn, our street cred, if you will. Are these guys going to manufacture what they say they're going to make? It's going to be like it's supposed to be. And we get to do that when we don't take reserves crazy, insane up front. Once we're into production and that sort of thing, and we know the machines are running, we'll allow for that small, hey, you guys can reserve now with a, fully refundable. We won't hold your feet to the flames. And even that we fought. That was what we, just because the market's so, the collectibles market is so accustomed to that, queuing up and, hey, let me reserve this. I get it from the point of view where you don't want to have to chase a product on the secondary market. Should it sell out? And hey, I don't want to run this thing down on eBay. I just want to make sure I've kind of secured my spot in line. We've kind of given to that, but like I said, when we're deep into production, we'll let people kind of stick a hand in the air.
We've already put money down into the project by the time that we're willing to take somebody's money for it.
We're deep.
It's halfway in.
We always kind of say it's like not on the boat. It's like close to being put on the boat before we'll actually take money for it.
Right. And what Amy just said is, that's what Tom always Tom puts it a little more, brass tacks. These runs are going to happen no matter what. Whether you sign up for it up front or on the back end, it's happening. We don't finance our runs off the take of the prior run. And that's where a lot of prop companies have got themselves into trouble, where by the time they get going, everything costs them a little more money than they thought it might. They're getting tore up by studios for licensing fees, which I don't think anybody appreciates how expensive that can be, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, our runs will take place no matter what. So where you would have a factory that or a new company comes along and they're going to make whatever, whatchamacallit. Maybe their pre-sales don't go as though they thought it was going to. Maybe the interest isn't there. Maybe they just picked a dud or whatever. So now they've got to announce the second project that they don't have the money for, and before you know it, they're chasing their tail and the company's over before it started. We just didn't need to start that way. We started with super low manageable runs as we were getting our footing with some of our new factories. And where we think the popularity is there, we take things up a little bit, but never excessive, never just where it almost takes collectible out of the equation, the word collectible. I mean, even on our some of our most anticipated stuff, like our Jurassic Park night vision goggles, we're only doing 750 of those. I mean, that's it. In part, it makes things a little more manageable for us, But second, it'll be nice just to have them come and go. We don't want them eating up a bunch of warehouse space.
Because they're
And
really big.
we've worked them for years. Yeah, they're going to be monstrous. So the boxes, the shipping boxes, and everything. So things like that. The NV goggles, they're deep into production now. They're being made now. It's just we're not going to take pre-orders, pre-sales on them now until we've seen some of our first samples, and we've got a clear, definitive delivery window. Then we'll drop the gate. But yeah, we kind of segued off of licensing a little into pre-sales, but in a way it goes together, because when you go for your licensing, you guys know, one of our guys that we're waiting to talk about, one of our upcoming licenses, it was in the conversation when we were talking about some of the product. When do you guys?
When do you offer pre-sales?
That's how common pre-sales are now, that the studio themselves wants you to project off your pre-sales. So that's how common it is. But yeah, I think what surprised me with licensing, having been worked on a bunch of different sides of the desk, sales for prop replica companies, primarily engineering, prop making, that sort of thing has always been my bag. But licensing, the amount of time we spend on licensing, pursuing new ones, maintaining the ones we have, that sort of thing eats up a lot more time than I presumed it would. And then normally a lot of companies who do what we do, they'll hire people to take care of that for them. For the most part, it's us. We form and manage and take care of our own relationships. And of course, we got our man Chaz, who helps us bring Chaz in out of retirement.
We love you, Chaz.
We love you, buddy. But for the most part, we maintain, and take care of that stuff in house, and it's served us well so far. That's all I got.
Yep.
Amy, did you?
No, that's covered.
Or?
I think that's that's it. That's well covered.
That's about what we get all the time. It's just make this, or why did you choose this license over this one? So I think we've pretty much covered anything that we've gotten questions on so far.
Cool.
But keep them coming, guys. If you have other questions, we're happy to address them.
Indeed.
It's my little plug.
All right, you guys have a good Friday. I'm out.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Happy Friday, guys.
See you guys.
Soon.